Thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar tonight on Detoxification, Effective Biological Medicine Techniques with Dr. Melina Roberts. Dr. Roberts, she is a leading authority in European biological medicine, incorporating the most innovative technology to treat chronic disease, women's health issues, hormonal balancing, pediatric health, digestive disorders, and cancer. She has dedicated many years studying with leaders from around the world in the field of medicine and pursuing specialized training and learning effective methods to practice from practicing in different parts of the world. And she continues to further her knowledge, remaining at the forefront of medicine, continuously evolving to work with therapies that truly heal the body and allowing the systems of the body to function optimally. And this is definitely where detoxification with the angle of biological medicine techniques are involved. Dr. Roberts, she has completed specialized training in European biological medicine, biotherapeutic drainage, homotoxicology, and of course this list of many other things as well. She practices in Alberta, and she's also a published author with articles in scientific journals and magazines. She's a lecturer, and she has written a book called Building a Healthy Child. So I encourage you to go onto her website and take a look at the book. This is a really great food planning guide for mothers before pregnancy, for mothers during pregnancy, and then most importantly for an infant and young child as they're growing, how to food plan and food schedule and feed them to be able to essentially build them into a very healthy and strong child. Okay, so with all that said, I would like to welcome Dr. Roberts.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Heather. That was a great introduction. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for taking the opportunity to learn, really to be open to new information, to acquire more tools for your toolbox, to be able to help your patients. I appreciate you really just taking the time to be here. And detoxification, now this is a huge topic. There's so many people who are now, promoting detox programs. And, I think that a lot of programs out there, people are just moving toxins. They're mobilizing toxins. They're moving toxins from one area of the body to another, but they're not really effectively moving those toxins out of the body. Then there's this other camp that believes that we don't really need to detoxify, that our body's already doing it on its own. So I'm going to just be introducing this from a biological medicine perspective on detoxification and how we can do this safely and effectively and truly be able to really impact our patients. So just a little bit about me. I graduated from the University of Waterloo, Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology. I graduated from CCNM in Toronto. After that, I did some postgraduate work with the Paracelsus Clinic and learned more about European biological medicine, which is really the focus of how I practice now. And I'm the founder and now the clinical director of Advanced Naturopathic Medical Center in Calgary. And I've written a book called Building a Healthy Child. So let's talk about detoxification. Like, why are we going to detoxify? And I think that one of the key things we need to know is about the toxins that are in our environment, because I think a lot of people aren't even really aware of how much toxins we're exposed to in our environment. So some of those exposures that we're getting, one is that we're getting them from our environment. And so we call these exogenous toxins, and they're coming from the food, water, air, personal care products that we're putting on our body, any sort of drugs, the metal amalgams that are in our mouth, so anything in the environment. And then we have also these endogenous toxins. So these are toxins that are actually coming from internal. It's the waste products from our cells, some cellular debris. So these are two of the exposures that we're getting. And a lot of my patients will say, well, like where in the environment am I getting it? So I just want to kind of go through some of the lists that we're getting these exposures from. One is from the industrial toxins. And so even if you don't work in an industrial, close to industrial toxins, you don't live near to an industrial plant, you still have exposure because we're still all breathing the same air, drinking the water. It's making its way into the soils, which is making its way into our foods. So as long as we are all living on the same earth, we are still exposed to these same toxins. The other way we're getting exposure is through agriculture. So our foods are just sprayed with pesticides and herbicides and insecticides, and then our animals are injected with hormones and antibiotics. So we're getting a whole bunch of those toxins. And one of the things is that because we're like top of the food chain, we actually get concentrated amounts of toxic loads. Another way that we're getting exposure as well is in our households. So the building supplies that our house are made of, all the stuff in our house like the furniture, cleaning supplies, cookwares, everything's off-gassing, and we're getting a huge amount of toxic loads just in our houses. And personal care products, this is a huge one because this is really an unregulated system where they can stick a whole bunch of toxins in, and no one's regulating what's going into these products. And so there's a ton of products that we're putting on our bodies every day, most of us. And the other one is the food toxins, so the GMOs, which are filled with toxins themselves. And then all of our processed foods are filled with a whole bunch of toxins like food coloring, flavors, artificial sweeteners, preservatives. So the list goes on. There's a huge amount of toxins, and how is this affecting us? Now, I think it's important for us to understand that there's a toxin health connection here. And I think one of the key factors to know is just how much chemicals are being produced in our body, or sorry, in our environment. And so we got just some numbers here. 74 billion pounds of chemicals are being produced in the U.S. every day. There's approximately 80,000 chemicals on the market, and most of these are being used. These are American statistics, but Canadians, I think, can be easily crossed over. So most Americans are using these every day, and about 90% of these have actually never been tested for safety and human health. Another thing you need to know is that when they're testing our blood, what they're finding is that there's about 104 environmental pollutants found in everyone. So this is like ubiquitous. So it's distributed throughout us. And what they're finding is probably about 80% of these chemicals are what we call non-persistent chemicals, which means that they have like short half-lives. And we used to think that they weren't really a problem because they wouldn't really build up in us because of these short half-lives. But because we're exposed to them every day, they're causing great problems in our bodies. And so we are getting problems with them. And the other challenge is that when they check the umbilical cords of newborns, they also found 287 environmental chemicals in newborns' umbilical cords. So that means that we're passing this toxic load onto our kids, which is not giving them the greatest start. And the challenge is that chemicals are also, like, they're persistent in the environment for decades. So something that was, say, banned in the 1970s, we're still finding it in adults and we're finding it in children. So it's, you know, these chemicals are definitely continue to stay within us. And what's showing is that the increase in exposure to toxins has actually paralleled the rise in chronic disease. So as this industrial age has happened, we're starting to see an increase in chronic disease, and the list is long. I'll read it out. Obesity, diabetes, allergies, asthma, endometriosis, cancers, fibroids, autoimmune disease, Alzheimer's disease, neurological disease. We're seeing hormonal problems. Infertility is huge. PCOS, endometriosis. One of the things I was reading about in Dr. Joseph Brzorno's recent book, The Toxic Solution, it's a great book, but he was talking about how diabetes has increased due to the toxins, not due to the increase in sugar intake. And that surprised me. I always thought it was because we're, as a society, we're just eating more sugars. But he actually shows some studies that there's chemicals that actually poison the insulin receptor sites. And as these have increased in human blood, we've also seen an increase in the incidence of type 2 diabetes. So this is a huge problem here. Now, toxins themselves have increased the rise of disease, risk of disease. It decreases our vitality, it makes us age more rapidly, and what's happening is that we actually absorb these toxins, and we can call these toxins a number of different things. We can call them hormone disruptors, neurotoxins, carcinogens, but regardless of their name, what they are is they're chemicals that are binding to our cells, and they're damaging the cell's ability to be able to function. So this is where it's causing problems. And what happens is that we have enough toxins that have accumulated over time that it's decreasing our body's ability to be able to adapt. And when we can't adapt, that's when disease starts to happen. These chemicals in circulation are causing inflammation, oxidative damage. They're causing brain inflammation, altering gene expression. So my take-home message here is that we live in this highly toxic world, and these toxins are greatly impacting our health in a negative way. That's the take-home message. That's what I want you to know. So really, in essence, there's three parts to detoxification. One is that we need to limit the exposure. Number two is that we need to open up those detoxification pathways and make sure that they're open and working effectively, and that's what I'm going to talk in a little bit more detail about. And the third part is that we need to promote elimination. So once these toxins are mobilized, we need to effectively be able to move them out. Now, if anyone has studied with Dr. Rao, he talks about the barrel of toxins. And what happens is that over a lifetime, we start to accumulate toxins. And then when that barrel starts to overflow with toxins, that's when we start to see symptoms. But the truth is that we're all filled with toxins, whether we have symptoms or not. We just are we're all filled with toxins. We all would benefit from detoxification. Now, the different toxic exposures is water. You know, most of our water has chlorine in it, and fluoride. We have our air pollution inside and outside the home because of all the off-gassing that's happening inside our home. They're actually showing that inside the home tends to be actually more toxic than outside the home, which is actually quite scary. We're also getting it in our foods, as I talked about as well, and you know, these herbicides and pesticides and insecticides are really affecting our hormones, our immune system, our gut flora, causing huge problems in the body. Personal care products, are a huge problem as well. You know, if something says on the label that there's fragrances, those fragrances can have like 50-plus chemicals in them. And so we need some tactics, right? Some tactics in order to make sure that we limit the exposure. So some of these tactics are eating organically grown foods. We want to avoid having processed foods. We want to change our cookware so that we're not having the Teflon and the aluminum cookware. We want to limit alcohol consumption, because when we have alcohol consumption, it actually congests up our liver more and makes it tougher for our body to properly detoxify. We want to install some of those HEPA air filters in our home. Just cleaning up the air in our home can make a huge difference. We want to use natural cleaners in our house instead of the toxic ones. We want to use non-toxic personal care products, all that stuff that we're putting on our body and it's getting absorbed into our tissues below. And we want to drink filtered water. We want to make sure that we're taking in some high-quality water sources. Now, just talking about these toxins, so we have these different toxins, some that are coming from internal and external, and what happens is that they come in, they're entering the blood, and then we have these detoxification pathways. So you have your liver, your gallbladder, your kidneys, your lymphatic system, lungs, and skin. These are all your body's way of naturally moving these toxins out. And if they were working at their best, then they would move those toxins out and we wouldn't move on to it. But if they're not working at their best, so say we have a congested liver, if you're not drinking enough water, if we're not breathing that well, if we're not sweating that well, if we're having constipation, any of these things would congest up these systems. And if this is happening, then the toxic loads are then moving into the connective tissue or the extracellular space. And as they start to load up that extracellular space, then they actually start moving into the intracellular space, so they start to move into the cells. And then they can actually affect the DNA. So this is what the kind of the progress of what happens. I think it's also important for us to understand that detoxification happens when we're in that parasympathetic state. So we have an autonomic nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system is that system that works in the background that we don't consciously control. So there's two parts of that system. There's your stress state, your fight or flight state, and then there's your parasympathetic state. And that parasympathetic state is your rest, digest, repair, and detoxify. So what that means is that in order for us to properly detoxify, we need to decrease the stress in our lives. And we also, another thing is that we need to be getting into our deep, restful sleep. So those are like kind of a side note, but that's also important for us to know that we need to be in that parasympathetic state. And there's a great remedy. Aveno sativa helps to calm the nervous system, helps to push the body into that parasympathetic state. Now, we have these different emunctories, and so what these are is they're the detoxification pathways. And we got to make sure that our emunctories are working well in order to kind of open up and move those toxins out of the body. So we have primary emunctories and secondary emunctories. So how it works is that we actually have to work on improving the function of the primary emunctories, and then we move on to the secondary emunctories. So the primary ones are the liver, gallbladder, the kidneys, the lymphatic system, and then the secondary ones are the lungs and the skin. Now, I think it's also important for us to really understand the drainage pathway of the lymphatic system, because this is going to play a big role in how our bodies properly detoxify. So the lymphatic system, I describe it like the sewer system of the body. It cleans up tissues, moves toxins out, and it's really our body's secondary circulatory system, and about 80% of the lymphatic system is actually housed in the digestive tract. Now, the lymphatic system should be the consistency of water, but when it gets congested, it becomes more the consistency of sludge. And when that lymphatic system is congested, you're going to see a lowered immune system, increase in chronic disease, chronic inflammation. You're going to see the body's reduced ability to be able to detoxify. Now, I think it's also important to understand the flow patterns of this closed system. So I think it's really nice to think of it like a funnel, like I have it depicted in this picture. So you have your superficial lymphatic system up at the top, and it drains your head, your neck, your skin, your breast tissue, everything's superficial. And then you have your deep lymphatic system, which drains all your deep vital organs. So the superficial lymphatic system drains into that deep lymphatic system. It all filters through the liver and empties out the colon. So from this, I think you can see that if that colon, if that digestive tract isn't working at its best, it will actually back up that whole system. So then that liver gets congested, the deep lymphatic system won't drain, and you'll likely see symptoms show up in that superficial lymphatic system. So I think that this is a good reference point for looking at detoxification. So then I'll move on to why we need to really focus on promoting proper elimination, healing the digestive tract. So I did an entire lecture on this topic, but I'm going to sum it up all in one slide here. The talk I gave was through Biomed called Healthy Gut, Healthy Body, and there is five steps to healing the digestive tract. Now, one is that we want to decrease inflammation. So I call it putting out the fire. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to avoid wheat, cow's dairy, refined sugar. Then you want to heal the lining of the digestive tract. One of the great products for that is the NAG, the NAG. Then you want to balance out the microflora of the digestive tract, and using the Sanums works really well for this. So the challenge with that is that if you're eating the wrong foods, you actually increase the growth of the wrong bacteria. And when the wrong bacteria digest food, the bacteria actually releases toxic chemical byproducts called endotoxins. And then these endotoxins inflame the gut. They affect how that gut functions, and then they cause an extra load on that liver. So that's why it's really important for us to balance out this gut flora. Now, another thing we need to do is that we need to increase the fiber, because fiber, what it does is it binds onto the toxins in the gut and helps to move them out. So if we don't have enough fiber, those toxins can actually get reabsorbed and again cause more problems. And then the other thing that we need to do is we need to reestablish the proper function of the immune system. And a great product for that is the Pleorebasan, which is the Byers patch. Now, what you have to understand is that if we're not properly eliminating, so if you're not having a bowel movement at least once a day, then there's this thing called endohepatic circulation, which means that we reabsorb that toxic load. And so that's one of the major reasons why we really need to focus on proper elimination and healing the gut. Now I'm going to move on to one of the major topics, which is the liver. And the thing is that if the liver is not functioning at its best, that means that toxins are accumulating in other tissues of our bodies. So if the liver's not functioning at its best, we can see a whole number of symptoms. But I'm going to go through some of them because some of them will be digestive issues. You'll get some bloating. The liver and gallbladder work really closely together. So the liver makes bile and then the gallbladder stores it. So if you're having any sort of gallbladder issues or difficulty or challenges properly metabolizing fats, that could be a liver issue. There can be skin issues because anytime anything shows up on the skin, it does tell us that the primary organs of detoxification aren't working at their best. And then the body is using those secondary organs of detoxification to move that toxic load out. There's a huge connection in terms of hormones, and I think a lot of people aren't aware of that, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But if you have any sort of hormonal imbalance, and that can be a number of things from challenges with periods, weight gain, if we're seeing any sort of thyroid problems, adrenal fatigue, this can be indications that the liver is out of balance. And because of those pathways I was showing you, if that liver is not functioning at its best, then you can see lymphatic congestion happening. So sometimes this will be showing up in sinuses or fluid retention. And then if there's inflammation in the liver, so discomfort or pain over the liver, nausea is a big one that I tend to see. And the other one is when people are waking up between 1 and 3. So the liver is the most biologically active during our sleeping hours between 1 and 3. So if people are waking up between 1 and 3, this can tell us that, that the liver is congested. So often, you know, people are having challenges with sleep and people are given sleeping aids, but we actually have to work on fixing up their liver before we can, in order to get them to sleep better. And then there is some emotional connections as well. So anger, irritability can be telling us that the liver is out of balance. Now, I also want to go through this hormone connection because a lot of people aren't aware of this, is that, so liver is for sure your body's major detoxifying organ, but it's also where all your hormones are metabolized. So your liver makes cholesterol, and then cholesterol is the building blocks of all your, it's all your female hormones for your ovaries, estrogen, progesterone. For our males, it'll be your testosterone. The cholesterol also gets made into adrenal hormones, and cholesterol gets made into thyroid hormones. So if you have any issues with female issues in terms of periods, PCOS, endometriosis, this can all be liver-related. Adrenal function, so adrenal stress, adrenal fatigue can be liver-related. Thyroid dysfunction, so hypothyroid, Hashimoto's, hyperthyroid issues, again, this can be liver-related, believe it or not. So I think that's important for us to recognize as well. Now I'm going to get into the liver, we call it biotransformation. So it's the liver phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. And the liver enzymes, what they're doing is they're filtering 2/4 of blood every minute, and they're breaking down unwanted chemicals and then turning them into something harmless or inactivating them and making them easy to excrete. And what they're doing is they're typically just changing the shape of it in order to accelerate that movement out of the body. And in order for this to happen, we need nutrients and enzymes in order to even process these toxins. So we got phase 1 detoxification, which is a group of 50 to 100 enzymes called the cytochrome P450. And really in phase 1, what's happening is that we're transforming those toxins. And what happens is that it actually generates a whole bunch of free radicals that need to be neutralized, or it can actually be damaging to the liver. So we actually need a whole bunch of glutathione in order to neutralize those free radicals that are produced in the phase 1 detoxification. Now, so we need glutathione for those intermediates. And the thing is that glutathione is also required for phase 2 detoxification. And if that glutathione is actually depleted because we have a high amount of toxins in phase 1 and then too many free radicals that are produced from that phase 1, and it kind of depletes that glutathione, then that means that those glutathione pathways that are dependent on glutathion in phase 2 will just stop. So this is why glutathione is actually quite important in these phase 1 and phase 2 detoxifications. So and then in phase 2, what happens is that we attach a small chemical to the toxins and it just neutralizes them, or it makes the toxins easier for us to be able to move out through the urine or through the bile. And in phase 2, there's actually 6 detoxification pathways. And all of these pathways need specific nutrients for activation, and they also need a certain amount of nutrients that I've listed there as well. Another thing is that these pathways are all metabolic pathways that need energy to function. And where do we get our energy? We get our energy from the mitochondria. The mitochondria makes ATP. And so in order for this to happen, we need the mitochondria to be functioning well to make that ATP in order to make that ATP in order for those to give energy to those other metabolic pathways. So this is other reasons why it's important. Now, we'll talk about glutathione a bit. So glutathione is made up of 3 amino acids, glycine, glutamic acid, and cysteine. And so one of the ways that we can increase glutathione is by taking NAC, so N-acetylcysteine. And the other thing is you can also take glycine. And glycine, we tend to see it when people are having sleep issues, and they're also having some anxiety as well. And so taking some of that glycine will help that. Another thing that really helps is selenium. Selenium helps to recycle that glutathione, so that can play a big role too. And remembering that we need ATP. So one of the things that helps to move ATP is actually magnesium. So magnesium also plays a big role in helping with these pathways. And one of the food groups that's really helpful with supporting phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification is the brassica family. And so that's the cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, because what they do, they actually contain some constituents which help with phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. Now, if we have any sort of decrease in the function of the liver, this allows more toxins to move into the blood. And what's important to understand is that every cell in the body needs to be able to move these toxins out. And we need like this good balance between how fast you release toxins from your cells and how fast your liver is able to break them apart and then excrete them from the body. So this is really important as well. And so my question for you guys as you're listening is, as important as phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification is, where is this reaction happening? Where is this biochemical reaction happening? And this biochemical reaction is happening intracellular. So the phase 1, phase 2 detoxification happens within the cell. The mitochondria is also within the cell. Now, this is where we come up with some challenges, because what if we have a whole bunch of toxins in the extracellular space? This is going to make it challenging for us to get any sort of nutrients into the cells. And so we can be eating all the right foods, we can be taking all the right nutritional supplements in the world, but if our enzyme pathways are poisoned with chemicals and metals, then this system just can't work well. And this is, I'm going to say, this is our big differentiation between functional medicine and biological medicine. So functional medicine really focuses on the phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification and what nutrients we need. But when we come at it from a a biological medicine perspective, we're saying, okay, but we need to clean up that terrain. We need to clean up that extracellular space before we can effectively get anything into the cells. I had the pleasure of listening to a PhD researcher on cancer called, her name is Melina Roberts, and what she's finding is that cell communication all occurs in the extracellular space, that it's all about the microenvironment. And we talk about this in biological medicine, is that it's all about the terrain, and that we need to clean up this terrain in order for us to have healthy cells. So this brings me to some challenges that we have. So if we haven't healed the gut, then we're not able to properly absorb any sort of nutrients in order to be beneficial to those cells. Or if that middle picture there, it's a hypercoagulation, and you see all the red blood cells all stuck together. And what happens is they get all stuck together when there's chronic inflammation in the system. But if you can see from that picture, it'd be really tough for us to get nutrients into those cells when they're all stacked together like that, because the surface area of the cells is actually all not exposed. It's all hypercoagulated. And another challenge is that if there's a bunch of oxidative damage happening to the cell membranes, if you look at those cell membranes, they're not perfectly round. They should be perfectly round. They kind of look a little spiky, or they look a little bumpy on the sides. And when those cell membranes are disrupted, it again makes it really tough for us to properly be getting nutrients into these cells. And so this really tells us that we need to clean up that extracellular space. We need to heal up the digestive tract before we can be able to properly support phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. So that brings us to drainage. And, you know, like the drainage projects, you know, the ones I really love are the Nessman Farm. And these drainage remedies aren't new. They've been around for 5 generations, the specific company, and the Nessman products, or they're known in Europe as the drainage company. And there's specific things that you need to know about drainage remedies, because what they're doing is they're increasing the circulation to specific organs, specific areas of the body, specific systems of the body. They really aid in targeted elimination. There's actually they're actually biochemically active in the body, which is very important. Not all products will be that, so these ones are very different and specific. And what it's doing is it's removing extracellular toxins in that connective tissue and cells. So those are all the ones that can be interfering with how these systems are functioning. And so what they're doing is they're draining, they're helping with draining that toxic load out so that we can get proper repair and rejuvenation of those systems. So these drainage remedies are actually quite powerful, and we really need to work on draining these organs before we can actually get the proper nutrients in to get them to function properly. So I'm going to start with liver drainage and liver support. And liver drainage, there's 3 really great ones. There's the A. hepatica, there's Cardus, and the Cardinaris. I use these all quite a lot, and the hepatica is the way I kind of differentiate between the hepaticus and the Cardus is that the hepatica I use if a person has no constipation, and the Cardus I use when they have constipation. So the hepatica is really great with improving liver function and improving those detoxification pathways and moving that toxic load out. The Cardis, what it does is it actually helps with liver and gallbladder detoxification. So when we have better bile flow, it actually helps the bowels to move a lot better. So this is an important factor as well with the Cardis. And the Cardinaris, because it has that artichoke extract, it really helps with the cholesterol picture. And so I'll use this in the patients who have high cholesterol, so they're bringing me in their blood work that shows that they have high cholesterol. But I'll also use it with patients who are having any sort of hormonal issues, because remember the cholesterol actually gets manufactured into, or it's a building block of all your hormones. So if you're having high cholesterol, it means that that cholesterol actually isn't being properly utilized by the body. So getting patients onto the Cardinera actually helps with that hormone balance picture as well. So once we've done the drainage, then you can also do the supplement support. So Biomed has some great ones that do help to stimulate proper liver detoxification. The Terexa, and then which actually has some nutrients in it. It has like the B6 and the B12 and magnesium in it. It has some turmeric and dandelion. It also has like some of those lipotrophic factors, so which helps to move the fat-soluble toxins out. And then there's the Heparaplex, which it's made up of more the botanicals. So, and with those botanicals, it helps with supporting proper liver function, but also helping to protect the liver from getting damaged. And then I have a list of different nutritional supports, so different things that we can tell our patients to eat to help to support liver function. So there's a number of them there, but the brassica family is probably the most common one because it helps to support that phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. And the other thing that people can be doing lifestyle-wise is by reducing alcohol consumption, because for sure drinking alcohol puts an extra stress on that liver. Now, moving on to the kidneys, which again is another one of the primary emunctories of the body. And the kidneys, what they're doing is they're filtering our blood 24 hours a day. And what they're doing is they're removing toxins from the blood, and then they're moving toxins out into the urine and out of the body. And there's some signs that the liver may be out of balance. One is that you're experiencing any sort of fluid retention, because that kidneys do play a big role in controlling the fluids in the body. So if we're holding on to it, it can be that the kidneys aren't functioning well. Sometimes one of the things that you can even see just from looking at a person is if they have a bit of puffiness underneath their eyes, that can definitely be kidney imbalances. So just looking at your patients even before you start talking to them, sometimes you can see that. If they're having any sort of issues with urination, that'll tell you that kidneys are out of balance. Because the kidneys play such a big role in moving that toxic load out, if they're feeling tired or sluggish, this can be kidney related too. And things that would also tell us is if they're having pains in their legs or lower back, it can just be that they're just not effectively moving that fluid out. And often, again, you can see stuff showing up on the skin, because remember, if the primary organs of detoxification aren't working at their best, then we see them on this. We see stuff showing up on that secondary organs of detoxification. So liver and kidneys not working at their best, then we start to see skin issues showing up. Now, I don't know if this looks small on your screen, so I apologize that they're small, but I think we're going to give you printouts of this. So in terms of the kidneys, now the nice remedies that I like to use for kidneys are the Solidago and the Buco. I tend to use Solidago more because it's using it more to help support kidney function and that whole cleaning up the urinary tract. And buco, I tend to use it more if people have like long-term kidney problems, so it helps with more like that kidney regeneration. And then there is, after you've done that drainage, then we can start doing the nutritional support as well. And we see that with cherries. One of the big ones would be like those nitrate-rich foods. And what those nitrate-rich foods, they actually help with the microcirculation. So you want those, and then there's also some herbs that also help with that microcirculation. So the ginger, the gudo cola, the ginkgo biloba, those all help with those microcirculations. And then lifestyle, this is a big one too, because I think that most people are walking around pretty dehydrated. So we want to help to support the kidneys, and one of the ways we can do that is by drinking enough filtered water. So I say at least 2 liters of filtered water per day. And the filters, I would say, would be like a carbon block filter, or reverse osmosis would be best. We want to decrease protein consumption, because the more protein you're taking in, the more challenging it is on your kidneys. That's the same with salt. The more salt you're having, it's more challenging on the kidneys. And removing the phosphates, and those are the carbonated beverages, the breads, the flavoring, because this actually decreases that microcirculation. So if you understand that the kidneys, if you look closely at the kidneys is mostly all microcirculation. Now I bring you back to this picture of the lymphatic drainage, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about lymphatic drainage, because what it is it's this. So we've worked on getting the colon working, we worked on the liver, and then we're going to work on the deep lymphatic system and that superficial lymphatic system and make sure it's all moving well. Because the lymphatic system, it's this passive system. It has no pumps. And what happens is that we actually reabsorb fluids that accumulate in our tissues. And what it has these like micro valves, and the fluids can flow in, but they can't flow out. So we're really dependent on the venous system and the muscle contractions in order to move the lymphatic system throughout the entire body. And if we're not effectively able to move it, it does get reabsorbed into the blood system, and then it goes back to the heart. So that's why we really want to make sure that that lymphatic system is moving. So some of those signs and symptoms that the lymphatic system may not be moving well is if we're seeing stuff showing up in that superficial lymphatic system. So we're seeing sinus, throat, ear infections, seeing swollen glands, we're seeing the swelling, the fluid retention. And the other one is that, I was talking about the puffiness under the eyes for the kidneys, but for lymphatic system, if you see the dark circles under people's eyes, that's telling us that the lymphatic system's congested. So often you can see that as soon as they walk into your office. And the other thing is that the lymphatic system is where a bunch of our immune system is. And so if the lymphatic system's not effectively able to move those infectious agents out, then we start to see a weakened or an impaired immune system as well. So some great remedies for helping to move the lymphatic system, just get it draining better, is the lymphodrop. Is really great for just an overall lymphatic system. And then the LAPA is used, it's, I'd say, a broad spectrum detoxification, so it helps to clean up the blood, so it's working on all of those different systems, but definitely a big lymphatic system stimulator. And then there are some foods to help support the lymphatic system. eating your greens, lemons will help. Proteolytic enzymes just help to break up any of those inflammatory factors in the body. And then things that we can suggest to our patients to get them to get that lymphatic system moving is the dry skin brushing, so little circles towards the heart, castor oil packs on the abdomen. So what you do is you just take some castor oil, put it onto a piece of flannel, put that onto your abdomen, put a piece of plastic over that, and then a heating source over that, and that does help to stimulate the deep lymphatics. And rebounding, so jumping on one of those mini trampolines definitely helps to activate the deep lymphatics. And then we move on to the secondary organs of detoxification, which one is the lungs. And often we know there's lung weaknesses when people say, you know, every time I get sick, my cold goes straight to my lungs. So that would indicate that the lungs are their weak spot, or they have, you know, some sort of history of lung infections, bronchitis, pneumonia. They tell you that in the past they have had, or as a kid they had asthma, and it typically it's just showing sort of that weakness of the lungs. So they have difficulty breathing, they have the shortness of breath. So all of those things would tell us that we need to be working on the lungs. So again, we're not working on the lungs right away. There's those secondary emunctories. So they're not our primary. So we've got to make sure that the liver, kidneys, lymphatics are working well, and then we work on the lungs. And one of the great remedies for the lungs is the broncha, and it just helps to move that toxic load out of the extracellular space of those lung tissues. And supportive-wise, ginger and then NAC is also a good one for helping to support lung function as well. And when we're looking at lungs, we can also talk about getting our patients to do some deep breathing exercises. The more, because what we're finding is that most people actually just breathe with the top part of their lungs. They're not actually using their entire lungs. So by using your entire lungs, you actually help to exercise those lungs, but it's really important for those deep breathing to get oxygen into those deep lobes, so those lower lobes. Exercise and movement also helps to support the lungs as well. And moving on to the skin. Now the skin is, I know it's so tempting because so many people like come in with skin issues, and it's tempting for us to just want to skip all the steps and just move into trying to treat the skin. But the thing is that we can actually make the skin worse if we don't work on those primary emunctories first and then work on the skin. And we can see a number of things show up on the skin, from rashes to eczema, psoriasis, acne, rosacea, the itchy skin, the red blotchy skin. Anything that's showing up on the skin really is telling us that the primary organs of detoxification aren't working at their best. And some of those great remedies for helping to support the skin is Luvos. Luvos is just a mineral that helps to just sponge up toxins. And so you can use, like I tend to use the Luvos caps that you take orally for sponging up any of those toxins. But what you can also do is that you can also use the powder. You can mix it up with some water and use it as a paste and put it on directly onto the skin, and it helps to draw out any of those toxins. And so that's just another way that we can move those toxins out instead of really just being dependent on moving them out through our bowels and through our urine. And supporting the skin is really important too, making sure that we're having enough of those healthy fats. We can get some of that collagen from the bone broths as well. And, you know, lifestyle things, I'd say one of the big ones is that we need to change up the personal care products that we're using. So we need to use personal care products that don't have as many toxins. So using non-toxic personal care products on our skin will help to support the skin so that they don't get all congested with so many toxic loads that we put on them. And then the other thing that we can do is infrared saunas. Infrared saunas increase the sweating, and they actually find that the concentration of the toxins is actually 2 to 10 times higher in our sweat than it is in our blood. So if we can get people sweating in those saunas, that will actually help to draw out toxins. Now I'm going to just kind of touch briefly on this other topic, which is heavy metals, and there's lots of ways to move heavy metals out, but there are some really great products here. Like the Biorella, what it does is actually binds to the heavy metals and then moves them out. And then the Cilantrix, what it helps do is actually helps to mobilize heavy metals. And one of the key things is that heavy metals actually has an affinity for the nervous system. So the fact that the Cilantrix can actually pass the blood-brain barrier means that it can actually clean up the nervous system. So I normally just put people on the Cilantrix for like a period of time, so say a week, and then they're on the Biorella the entire time. So they're on it for a week and then off for a week and then back on it. So just on and off of it so that it mobilizes toxins, and then the Biorella just helps to kind of sponge them up at the same time. And what's happening really is that, you know, our plants are grown in like these nutrient-depleted soils, and when our soils are depleted, we actually absorb, our foods actually absorb more toxic metals. So that's why we're seeing higher amounts of heavy metal toxicity as well as living in a toxic world. I think it's also important for us to know that heavy metals have this symbiotic relationship with candida. And so the heavy metals bind to the candida. It's a protective mechanism to just bring the heavy metals out of circulation. So often when you're seeing this fungal overgrowth, it can be because there's a heavy metal picture that you need to explore as well. And so just going through these proper steps, I know I'm running out of time, but I'm going to try to get through this. This is my last slide here. What you're going to do is we're going to limit exposure, and then we want to promote elimination. So first of all, we're limiting exposure to those toxins. Then we're going to just make sure that the bowels are moving. And then we need to focus on drainage. So we have to clean up the extracellular space, as well as it'll help to clean up the intracellular space of that toxic load too. And we need to start with the primary emunctories and then move on to the secondary emunctories. And then after we've done that, then we can do that biotransformation where we get the proper nutrients and enzymes into the system in order to help support like phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. So this is really the approach to help properly detoxify from a biological medicine perspective. So I know that was a lot of information, and I hope I got through it and that all made sense to you, because this is definitely a different take on it than you tend to see when we talk about detoxification. So thank you so much for listening. Here's my website. We're pretty active on social media, so please follow us on Facebook. And if you do have any questions, my email address is there. And then I'd like to thank Biomed for inviting me to speak, and thank you, Heather, for hosting us.
Excellent, and thank you for sharing all this wonderful knowledge from the biological medicine approach on detoxification. We do have a number of questions that have come through, so I was going to start reading these out for you. And also, I invite anybody, if you do have any questions, feel free to either type them into the chat room, or you can also type them into the Q&A section, and I'll ask them out loud, and Dr. Roberts can respond to them. Okay, so the first one here, okay, 1 second. Which water filters do you recommend in your practice?
So I don't recommend, I don't have like a specific brand that I recommend. Really, I just want, like at the most basic level, I want patients to be using like an activated carbon filter, which will take the chlorine out. In Alberta, we have chlorine in our water, so just taking that chlorine out for the end user. And then I'd say like an ideal kind of water filtration system, I would say would be like a reverse osmosis system would be the step up, but at the very least a carbon filter.
And is Brita's an example of a carbon filter? It's an
like
activated charcoal filter, I believe.
Activated, yeah. So an example would just be like a simple Brita filter.
Okay. Thank you. So next question here. What is your recommendation to help a 2.5-year-old who has multiple food allergies, showing leaky gut? He is eliminating the severe moderate food intolerances, and he's being breastfed.
Okay. I know it gets challenging. So especially if he's breastfed, mom also, one key factor is that mom also needs to stay away from those hyperallergenic foods, because that's going to help to support them as well. I think that this is probably one where I would recommend my book, just throw that out there, in terms of how we introduce foods and just making sure that, but I think in a lot of cases we're going to have to make sure that liver, kidneys are working well, so getting him on to like hepatica and solidago at a low amount, and just make sure that those pathways of detoxification are working really well, and make sure, I don't know about bowel movements, got to make sure that bowel movements are working really well, and that as you get those pathways of detoxification moving, that the bowels are also effectively open, because that can be sometimes a major problem, is when these kids are, or anyone is really having some of that constipation. Yeah, that would probably be my starting point, and then from there, like I always do, probiotics, make sure that the liver, kidneys are working well, and then we also want to work on just healing the mucous membranes of the digestive tract. So that's sort of our starting point to getting their system into balance.
Great, thank you. That's almost a whole other topic.
Yeah.
And a lot of it you had covered in a previous webinar when you were talking about intestinal health and kind of healing that.
Yeah, so heal the gut, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I've still got a few other questions here. And so, do you ever use chelating agents when trying to detox for heavy metals? And if so, what do you use?
So this is a big topic as well. So I do always start with a heavy metal test. So with that test, what I do is we do an IV with the chelating agents, the calcium EDTA and DMPS, and then from there mail it off to the specialized lab, get the results of what their heavy metal load is looking like. And from there, I kind of decide on which path we're going to go, and it depends on a number of things. It depends on what metals are showing up. It depends on what kind of levels they're at, and it also depends on what kind of shape their kidneys are in. Because the challenge is that with a lot of people, if their kidneys aren't in good shape, then that's when I'll actually do the approach I was talking about in this lecture, which is a lot gentler on those kidneys. And so it just helps to mobilize them. I always do, no matter what kind of protocol I'm doing, I always do kidney support, because moving, so they're all on Solidago, because moving metals out is challenging on the kidneys, no matter what. And the other thing is that, so you got to realize with any sort of chelation, it's challenging on the kidneys, and with chelation you're also moving you're moving metals out, but you're also moving minerals out. So you always got to make sure you're replenishing the body with minerals. So my plan really depends on those sort of things. If their kidneys are in really good shape and their metals are pretty high, I may do a protocol using the IV chelation. I might do it using the oral chelating agents, and then sort of my gentler form, but still an effective way would be to use the like Birella and the Solantrix. Yeah, so that's my answer.
Excellent. Again, this is also another topic.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic. That's a huge topic, but that's sort of my, I don't know, the simplest answer I can give.
And I will, in the follow-up email, I'll send out the heavy metal detox protocol that goes with Birella and Solantrix as well, and then supporting the kidneys. So from this same person who asked the question, she was just also asking about heavy metal toxicity such as lead. Do you ever use a chelating agent? And then she asked a few more specifics. When you're using Solantrix, use it 1 week on, 1 week off. And are you taking Birella the whole time, and how long to be on this protocol?
Okay, those are a lot of questions all in one.
So chelating agent with lead, heavy metal toxicity with lead.
So with lead at high amounts and kidneys are in good shape, then I will tend to use like the calcium EDTA and the DMPS. If their kidneys aren't in good shape, then I do use the Solidago, the Birella, and the Solantrix. And what I do is I'll do the Solantrix for a week, and a week on, a week off, and I use the Birella the entire time because it's sponging up the toxins the whole time.
Okay, excellent. Mm-hmm. And as I just mentioned, I'll send out the protocol with using Birella and Solantrix, and this one also talks about going 1 week off, 1 week on, using Birella the whole time, the dosage, how to ramp it up when you're actively working with Solantrix, and the length of protocol as well.
Awesome.
Okay, we've got a few more questions here. Let me just check. Managing, oh, excellent. We just got a nice response. Excellent, looking forward to the protocol. Great, thank you. Okay, so this is a question about Cardinera. Can it be used for hormonal imbalance picture and cholesterol picture? And then would it be safe for breast cancer patients?
Yes. Yes to all of that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the high cholesterol. I'll use it for helping with the hormonal balance, And yeah, I really use all of those remedies in cancer patients. I see a lot of cancer patients in my practice, and it's really important for us to be detoxifying them and doing it safely and effectively, and cleaning up those detoxification pathways, cleaning up that extracellular space. So the Cardinaris does a great job of helping that process along.
All right, another question. If there is multiple organ issues, would you start with the liver or the colon?
So I'm kind of doing, I typically am kind of working on them at the same time. So for example, someone comes in and I'm working on healing their digestive tract, want to make sure that those bowels are moving. I always start with the gut, and then balancing out their gut flora, and then I would typically also add in like a hepatica or a solidago based on which one we need to work on, but I will typically add that into their initial protocol right from the beginning.
All right. Is there any age that is too young to treat liver and kidneys with solidago and hepatica?
I wouldn't say so. I will use them on small infants. I think the dosing is just different. So, you know, I will use a lot smaller doses with the little ones, and you know, like the dose would be, you know, like I'm going to say like 5 to 10 drops in the little one, whereas like an adult I would be doing, you know, upwards of like 25 drops 2 times a day. Is what I would do in an adult, and then, you know, kids you're doing maybe 5 drops twice a day.
I know that general Nussbaum recommendations are for children that are 12 years or older, they would take an adult dosage. For children that are 6 to 12, they would take half the dosage, and under 6, they would take a quarter of the dosage.
Okay, yeah.
That's a general guideline, though. You can definitely kind of adjust it within, and depending on kind of what case is in front of you.
Yeah, for sure. And then also how sensitive patients are, right? So sometimes you got really sensitive patients, and so I always, like, we will use smaller doses with them, and it just means we're moving a little bit slower, but we're still making progress, moving forward.
All right, sounds good. And you got a big thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so another question here. You mentioned hormonal balance and thyroid issues like Hashimoto thyroiditis. What is your suggestion for Hashimoto thyroiditis?
So, like my protocols are kind of very similar and kind of simple in a way, but I always work on healing the gut, because we got to heal the gut because you know, 80% of the immune system is housed in the digestive tract. So if you heal the gut and get that immune system working well, you can really decrease that autoimmune picture. And then you want to make sure that you get the liver functioning better. And as you get that liver functioning better, then you're going to get the body to be able to effectively be able to make hormones. You know, and as you clean up the liver, clean up that that extracellular space, that's going to help to get that whole, you know, it's going to help to move that toxic load out. That you know, there's these things called hormone disruptors. They're chemicals that disrupt hormones. And as you clean up that extracellular space and help to move that toxic load out, you also help to move those hormone disruptors out that can be affecting the function of that thyroid. And then once you get all that done, then you can do some thyroid support like zinc and selenium and iodine in order to help support the thyroid and help the body to be able to properly convert that T4 to T3 and make sure that we're able to effectively get those nutrients into the cells and make the cells more sensitive. And part of that is detoxifying and cleaning up that space so that those cells can actually take in those hormones. So that's sort of my overall approach to Hashimoto's.
Thank you. That was a very good summary and kind of a good step-by-step of kind of how to peel that onion.
Yeah.
That was awesome. And almost it seems like, yet again another topic that could be dove into. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So there's just one more question here that I can see. This question is regarding emotional states. And so it's emotional states seem to override all the wonderful detox we do. How can we optimize this system when the emotions are the major toxifiers?
Well, I think the wonderful thing about these Nestman products is that they have botanicals in them, but they also have homeopathics in them. And so the homeopathics can also affect the organ at a pretty deep level, and it can affect the body at that clearing out that or affecting that at an emotional level. So depending on which emotion is affecting the system, then depending on that emotion, it'll affect the function of specific organs. So if you're able to figure out which organ it's being affected, then by using these remedies, you can actually help to clear that emotional pattern from the system as well. So, that's how powerful these remedies are, is that we're actually we're definitely affecting on a physical level, on a biochemical level, but we're also able to affect that emotional level as well.
As a matter of fact, we have an organ chart that connects the emotional issues with the Nestman remedies. So, for example, anger or irritability equals liver, resentment equals gallbladder, fear equals lungs. And, grief. Grief equals lungs, fear equals kidneys. And so I'm happy to email that chart out as well because it can be quite helpful at looking at just some kind of emotional stuff and how it connects with the different organs, and then using the complex, either homeopathic or herbal remedies, depending on what the Nestman remedy is composed of, can be really helpful in helping to not only drain the organ, but also help with moving some of the emotional stuff through. There is another question here from a classical homeopath, and she said, as a classical homeopath, would you use complex remedies? I think the answer is yes, because you're using the Nestman remedies, and they are complex. Some of them are complex homeopathics.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that they can complement a classical homeopathic as well. Like, they can do the classical homeopath, take what their constitution is, and that's working at a pretty deep level. But this is also, cleaning their system out as well. So I think they can work well together. Mm-hmm. I don't see why not.
Exactly. I've used both and find that, for sure, using classical remedies, using single low-potency remedies for detox, and sometimes using the complex homeopathics in low potency or the herbal remedies can really get in there and clear things out. So, so the same practitioner, she's asking if this is a conflict with Hahnemannian rules. I'm not sure, Dr. Roberts, if you're familiar with the Hahnemannian rules or how much in depth you went when you were in naturopathic college.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm a little rusty on that. It's been a while since I've been in school, so.
In general, it doesn't.
It may.
They generally follow the rules, like from the most important organ to the least important organ, from kind of the top down, from the inside out. And so in a lot of ways, detoxification does focus on following the rules generally.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like, is it talking about like the EMUNCTORIES and stuff? I can't remember at the moment.
Yeah. sorry, Nellie, we're not able to quite 100% answer your question, but as a classical homeopath myself, definitely when you're detoxing and you're looking at using drainage remedies, but working as a classical homeopath, a lot of classical homeopaths are comfortable using drainage remedies that are herbal-based, but they're not always comfortable using them as low-potency homeopathics. And so Nessman has a combination, not combo in the bottle, but some remedies are herbal and some are homeopathic, but they're still in very low X form, so there's still a lot of physical substance left. And as Dr. Roberts mentioned within her presentation, the Nessman remedies, they do have a biochemical effect within the organ in order to be able to affect the actual drainage and detoxification and support that organ to be able to do that. All right. So I think that seems like we've got the end of the questions here. So any last remarks that you would like to make, Dr. Roberts?
No, I think that I know I covered a lot of information, and I realized I was running out of time, so I kind of sped up at the end. So, yeah, if anyone has other questions, feel free to contact me.
All right, perfect. So I would like to thank you very much for speaking tonight on behalf of Biomed on detoxification, effective biological medicine techniques, and really being able to share not just kind of a drainage and detox by itself, but really looking more from that biological medicine principles and approach to be able to affect a better detoxification in the sense that it's following these biological medicine kind of rules within the body for re-regulation. So, and Dr. Roberts, again, thank you so much. It was a really wonderful talk, and I'm sure everybody has really learned quite a bit of information. So, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Take care, and have a really wonderful rest of your evening.